Ma'am, we've got your presentation and you're on mute now. I think you muted yourself. You can unmute yourself once you start your presentation.
A very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on wherever you're joining us from. I welcome you all back to session 6 of day 3 on reading and the growth of human mind of the 7-day international online faculty development program on language and literature, a pragmatic approach. I welcome Dr. Saravanan R., principal and patron of the program, Dr. Shakila Matthew, Dean Academics, Head, Department of English, and convener of the program, Mr. Logesh Kumar S., Administrative Officer, members of Faculty of English of VET Institute of Arts and Science, and the teaching fraternity of English language and literature from around the world to this session. A true teacher can awaken a student's belief in themselves. Joining us today is one such person who persistently instills curiosity and sparking desire for knowledge in her students. Dr. Vidya V is an assistant professor of English in SASTRA deemed to be University, Thanjavur. After completing her BA Honours from Delhi University, she pursued her Masters in English Literature in Annamalai University. She received her Bachelor of Education and Doctorate from Alagappa University. Starting her career as a trained graduate teacher in Indian school Salalah, Sultanate of Oman, she continued to serve in various capacities in several premium Indian and international institutions. Her scholastic skills enabled her to be a second member of European Centre for Research Training and Development UK, Indian Academic Researchers Association, English Language Teachers Contact Scheme, and International Systematic Functional Linguistics Association. Offering her expertise, she served as a project consultant in ICSSR Impress project, Advancement of Integrated Instructional Strategy in augmenting the ability of government tribal residential middle school teachers in English language. She has been the recipient of Dr. Radhakrishnan Award given by Tevanai Priya Kalai Mandram, Chennai on 7 January 2018 and a Certificate of Merit with Cash Award from St. Joseph's College, Trichinopalli for Best Paper published on 17 March 2018. Her excellence is not limited to the field of literature alone. She is equally adept at using computers as she is a certified computer professional in web development and Microsoft Visual Basics 5.0. She has to her credit numerous publications in revered national and international journals. She has been meticulously organizing seminars and conferences to help students acquire new skills and also sharpen the existing ones. This committed and dedicated professional never fails to provide a delightful and comprehensive learning experience to her students by creating a stimulating, caring, and a conducive environment. Ma'am, enrich us with your session on reading and the growth of human mind.
Thank you very much. At the outset, I thank the management of VD Institute of Arts and Science and the organizers of this FDP. A very good afternoon to all of you. And at the same time, I thank the management of SASTRA University for allowing me and permitting me to come here and share my views on the topic reading and growth of human mind. With a humble prayer to the Almighty, I begin my presentation. At the outset, I would like to tell you that I am not going to talk about reading skills as such. I am not going to talk about academic reading. I am going to talk about reading habits, not academic reading. I'm not going to talk about reading skills as such. We are going to discuss about reading habits. And Before I begin my presentation, I want to thank these three authors. These are the three books which I referred for my presentation. At the outset, I acknowledge their contribution. The first book is about how to read and why, written by Harold Bloom. The second one is How to Read, a book written by Mortimer Alder and Charles Van Doren. The third one is written by Josefa Bindrawala. The name of the book is Small Steps to Big Reading. So I acknowledge their contributions at the very outset. I divide my session into three sections. The first section we'll be talking about reading and how it helps in the growth of the human mind. In the second section, we'll be talking about misconceptions about reading. And the third section, we will have a detailed discussion about how to convert non-readers into demanding readers. Here I bring your attention to the word demanding readers. We are not just talking about readers. We are going to convert them into, we'll be trying to convert the non-readers into demanding readers. Before discussing about reading and the growth of the human mind, I would like to tell you things about why I chose this topic. If you take up the school curriculum or the college curriculum, you'll come across the work schedule or the timetable or the syllabus given to them. If you scan them, and you will find that very little effort or very little focus is given to reading habits. We do focus on academic reading, we do focus on reading skills, but we do not put any effort or we do not allow time for developing reading skills among the students. This is one of the reasons why I chose this topic. And another one is, if you look at, look at the students first. The students just stick on to their textbooks. They don't read other books other than their textbooks. And they're so busy with their electronic gadgets, we cannot blame them, we cannot complain about them. But this is something we need to accept it. We cannot complain about them. And they don't go beyond their textbooks. They do find it very boring to read text which is not prescribed for them. So this is about the students. What about adults like us? We too stop reading once we settle down with a good job. We refer books when we are students. We refer books when we are doing our research work. We do refer books when we do our projects. We do refer books when we do our PhD. And we keep reading at least till we get a good job. But once we get a good job, how many of us read or continue to read? Very few. We think there's no need for us to continue reading. So we stop there. This is about us, I'm talking. What about the elderly people, the retired people? The same thing is happening with them also. Once till they are busy till they work, once the day of their retirement comes, they feel lonely. They don't have anything else to do. Very few take up reading habits. Very few continue to read during their retired life. And those who take up reading, they lead a very pleasant, peaceful retired life. But those who don't take up reading, what happens to them? They feel lonely, they feel bored, they get frustrated, they become restless, they don't know what to do. And they make themselves miserable, and they make others' life also miserable. And out of 100 capacity of persons, you can say 1 or 2 people continue to read after their retirements. I have seen my grandfather, who passed away at the age of 95. He never complained about anything. He was leading a very peaceful, satisfied life. I've never seen him complaining or getting frustrated or restless. Then I was trying to find out what is the reason behind him. He was always keeping himself busy with reading something or the other. Anything that he found, he used to read. And he used to explain it to the grandchildren. And that was the reason I feel that he was happy till the last day of his life. So this is about one single person whom I'm talking about, but it is not the case with everyone, all the retired people. So this is the present scenario, and there is a need for inculcating reading habits among the students, adults, as well as the retired people or the elderly people too. So that's why I thought I should choose this topic. Before talking about reading, I want to talk a few things about human mind. What is the difference between human body and the human mind? The basic difference is that human body can grow only till a particular stage. Its growth is limited, but with the human mind, it is not so. You can stretch, you can expand infinitely. You can go on expanding, but it is not the case with human body. Its power to expand is infinite. There is no limit for this. That is the basic difference. Though the growth of the human mind is infinite, it has its limitations also. At one particular state, it stops functioning also. But when does it happen? It happens when we stop giving proper inputs to our mind. When we stop reading, or when we stop giving exercise to our human mind, or when we stop giving exercise to our mind. This happens when we don't, our human mind or our mind stops talking, stops functioning, when we don't give proper exercise or proper meaningful inputs to our mind. So this is about how the mind functions. Let's talk about reading now, and let's imagine a situation like this. We have a combat ring. I ask all the participants to use your imagination here. We have a combat ring, and we are going to introduce 3 competitors into the combat ring. We have a teacher, we have a poet, and we have a reader, and all of them, we're going to put them in the combat ring. What will happen? Who do you think will win, or who do you think is superior? Can you all just, I request all the participants to give your responses in the chat box. Is it possible? Hello?
Yes,
Hello?
yes, ma'am, it is possible, ma'am.
Yes. I want some responses from the audience. I repeat once again, we have a combat ring, and we have a teacher, a poet, and a reader, and we are putting them into the combat ring. What will happen? Who will win? I want the answers. Can anyone read out the answers for me in the chat box? I'm not able to see the chat box.
The answer teacher and reader alternatively.
Okay, teacher and the reader. Okay, if your answer is the teacher, it's not wrong. If your answer is the poet, again, it's not wrong. If your answer is reader, again, that answer is also not wrong. All the 3 answers are correct, because each one of them is a genius in their particular field. But in my opinion, the reader will win, because teaching leads to aided discovery and reading leads to unaided adventurous discovery. Now let's take 2 people, the teacher and the reader first, and then we'll talk about the poet. What happens during teaching? The teacher in the class guides the students, and with the help of the teacher, they discover the truth. So it is called the aided discovery. The students depend on the teacher, and they look at things from the teacher's point of view. So that is called aided discovery. But what happens in the reading process? There's no one to guide, there's no teacher. He discovers the truth by himself. He thinks, he reads, thinks, he reflects, and finds out the truth or the meaning in the text. So that's why it is called unaided discovery. Why adventurous discovery? It is adventurous because sometimes you might come across simple concepts. If the concepts are simple, it becomes very easy for the reader to understand. But if he comes across a difficult concept, it becomes a slightly adventurous task for him. he has to reflect, he has to think a lot and find out the truth by himself or the meaning by himself. So it is unaided adventurous discovery. Now, between these two things, aided discovery and unaided adventurous discovery, which is better? Of course, unaided adventurous discovery is better. So I feel the reader is much more superior than the teacher. I don't deny the role of the teacher. Nothing can replace the teacher. I don't have any argument on this. But here, I'm just telling you the importance of reading. And let's take the reader and the poet. What happens? Who is a poet? He actually is a creator, he's a composer, there is no doubt about it. But he uses his imagination, he uses his visualization, he uses his vocabulary, language skills, and composes the piece of art, or he composes his literary work. And once the composition is over, when he composes his work, his job is over, and the work or the piece of art becomes the property of the society. And what about reader? The reader, when he reads the text, what does he do? He has to be doubly intelligent, and he has to have a better imagination power to read the text, interpret it, and understand the meaning. And let's practically see what happens during the reading process. The reader takes a book, he reads the first word, and when he reads the first word, the eyes take the input. The first word is taken as an input. It is supplied to the brain. The brain receives the input, understands it, tries to interpret it, and tries to visualize it. After visualizing, it records it. Then the eyes move on to the next word. The next word is taken as an input and taken to the brain. And the brain again interprets, understands it, then visualizes it, and then records it in its memory. The same process continues from word to word. And when the sentence is complete, what happens? The brain collects all the bits, all the inputs together, shuffles it, and creates a meaning or complete whole meaning as such. This happens as we move on from one sentence to another. So when we complete a full paragraph, again the brain collects all the bits, collects all the inputs, tries to shuffle and create or visualize a picture as a whole. Here, the reader has to use his imagination, use his visualization power, which the poet also does. Actually, he has to use a wider range of imagination than the poet to interpret the text. So I feel reader will win in this competition. So reading is a more complex job when compared to teaching and composing of artistic works. So that's why even Emerson has said something related to this. He says, one must be an inventor to read well. And this statement again proves what I said in the previous slide. He says, to read well, one has to be an inventor. You have to invent. Let's move on to the next slide. Here we are going to have a grand finale. We have the teacher and the reader left out now. Now we put the teacher and the reader in the combat ring. Now who is going to win? Some of you might say the teacher, some of you might say the reader. Both the answers are correct, but I feel the reader will win because teacher imparts self-realization. There's no doubt about it. But reader wins two things. One is self-respect and self-realization. How does this happen? In the classroom, teacher guides the students, teachers imparts knowledge, and he is guiding the students. The students trust the teacher, and when they have doubts, they ask the teacher, and the teacher clarifies their doubts. But what happens in the reading process? There is no teacher. The reader cannot ask the author or the writer of the book and ask, hey, what have you written? What was there in your mind when you wrote this? No, he cannot do. There's no one. He has the text in his hand and he's there. There's no one else between him and the book. Can he ask the book the questions or the doubts? If he asks, what happens? There won't be any answer from the book's side. So what he does, he asks all the questions and doubts to himself. When he asks a question or a doubt to himself, thousands of answers come to his mind, not one or two, hundreds of answers come to his mind. Now, all the hundreds of answers cannot be accepted. So what does the mind do, the reader's mind do? Or what does the reader's mind do here? The mind tries to filter and get the right answers. From 100, it filters and gets or chooses 10 best answers. From 10, it moves on to 2 best answers. And then finally, it says, this is the right answer. And then by the time the reader, the correct answer, he wins 2 things, self-trust and self-realization. Self-realization because he has got the answer, and self-trust because he has done the whole process by himself. There's no one to guide. He's trusting himself to do or get the correct answer. So I feel reader will win when compared to the teacher. So reading is more complex rather than teaching here. That's what I feel. And this is what Emerson has also said. He says they may all be comprised in self-trust. In American Scholar, they here means the scholars. He wants the scholars to have self-trust. And that's what we discussed in the last slide. To get self-trust, reading is the best option. Let's move on to the next slide. Let's take real life examples. There's a picture of Warren Edward Buffett. He is an American business magnate. He's the 4th wealthiest person, and he's the chairman and CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. He reads 600 pages or 600 to 1,000 pages daily when he began his career. I want you to focus on the word daily, not the pages here. He was reading daily. So that shows that he had the reading habits. And when someone asked, what is the secret of your success? These are the words he uttered. He said, read 500 pages every day, every day. I stress on the word every day. That's how knowledge works. It builds up like compound interest. All of you can do it, but I guarantee not many of you will do it. I read and think. So I do more reading and thinking and make less impulse decisions than most people in business. These were the words when someone asked, what is the secret of your success? And it's a very clear proof that reading helped him to think and reading helped him to take good decisions in life. Let's take another example. It is Mark Cuban. And he is an American entrepreneur and investor. He's the owner of National Basketball Association's Dallas Mavericks. He's the co-owner of 2929 Entertainment and chairman of AXS TV. He's a shark investor on ABC reality television series Shark Tank. And he reads 3 hours a day. That means he's also reading regularly. And he says reading gives him comfort and confidence in business. In one of the interviews, these are the words he shared it with the public. I'm just reading it out and it is on the screen also for you. He said, I read every book or magazine. Now I want you to focus on these words. I read every book or magazine. He didn't stick on to a particular set of books. He read all kinds of books, all kinds of magazines. So that we need to really focus on here. I read every book or magazine I could get my hands on because one good idea would pay for the book and could make the difference between me making it or not. So it's a clear proof once again that reading helped him in his career. Let's talk about Bill Gates. There's no need for me to introduce or give an elaborate introduction here. Anyhow, he's the co-founder of Microsoft Corporation. He's an American business magnate, software developer, investor, and a philanthropist. He's one of the pioneers of Microsoft microcomputers revolution of 1970s and 1980s. And what is so special and why do you think I'm bringing him here? The most striking feature is that he reads around 50 books a year. 50 books, it's not a joke. It's something amazing. And he carries a book wherever he goes. So it's a clear proof that, of course, his reading habits have helped him to grow in his profession. He's alone. You can see Elon Reeve Musk, his picture on the slide. He's a South African-born American entrepreneur and businessman. He founded X.com in 1999, and which later on became PayPal. He founded SpaceX in 2002 and Tesla Motors in 2003. And he became a multimillionaire in his late 20s. I want you to focus on this particular place. He became a multimillionaire in his late 20s when he sold his startup company Zip2 to a division of compact computers. And he made headlines in May 2012 when SpaceX launched a rocket that would send the first commercial vehicle to the International Space Station. So these are his achievements. Now, why did I bring him here? The most important thing about him was that he taught himself to build rockets by reading. He didn't depend on others to learn how to build rockets. He took the help of books. He trusted the books. He read those books. And finally, he built a rocket and launched it. Now, don't you think it is a clear proof of all the statements which I made in the earlier section? I told you reading books gives you self-trust, self-realization. Reading brings or leads to unaided, adventurous discovery. Now, he got the self-trust by reading books. He taught himself to build rockets by reading books. Don't you think it is unaided, adventurous discovery? Yes, it is. I think I've proved my point. Now, let's talk about Anthony Robbins. He's an American author, public speaker, life coach, and a philanthropist. He's listed on the World Magazine Power 100 list in 2015 and 16. He also shared these words in one of the interviews. I would like to read it for you. It is on the screen. I took a speed reading course, he says, and read 700 books in 7 years. 700 books in 7 years. That means 100 books in a year. And what did he read? All on psychology, physiology, anything that could make a difference in life. I want you to focus on this particular last part of the sentence. He read anything that could make a difference in life. That shows that he didn't, again, he kept his mind open. He didn't read a particular set of books. He was ready to read any book that made a difference in his life. So these are a few real-life examples which prove that reading habits help a lot in career and in life also. Now, let's take an interesting, let's do some interesting activity over here. I want you to imagine two different situations. In the first situation, you are given an automatic transmission sports car and you're asked to drive on an airport runway. In the second situation, you are given a huge trailer truck and a manual stick, and it has got no automatic gears. It has got manual stick shift gears, and it lacks power steering. And you are asked to drive in an unfamiliar territory. You don't know the route. You are in an unfamiliar territory. And another difficult task is that you have to drive in narrow lanes. The particular area has got narrow lanes and it has got frequent turnings. Which do you think will you really enjoy? Will you enjoy driving the automatic transmission sports car on an airport runway, or would you enjoy the ride or enjoy driving the huge trailer truck? In the first situation, it's easy for you because you have a sports car and everything is automatic and there is no traffic. You're asked to drive on an airport runway. So the speed will be good, accuracy will be good. You can drive without any fear, without any confusion. So you will really enjoy the drive and you can drive without any efforts, without putting much efforts. What happens in the second situation? You have a huge trailer truck and there's no gears, there's no automatic gears. You have to do it manually. So that takes little time. You need to be more experienced and you don't know the route. That is the main thing. What will you do? You have to get down and ask for the route and take help from others and start driving. So you cannot drive fast as you wish. Another difficult task on your way is that you have narrow lanes. In the narrow lane, you have a huge truck driving. How will you feel? Even a small mistake on your part will end your life. So you have to be very careful and a lot of confusion. You will have a lot of confusion in your mind. You'll be driving with fear. Don't you think it is going to be scary? It's going to be a scary task. Definitely, you'll get scared. And another thing is it has got frequent turnings. You cannot just move with great speed. You have to be very slow. So why I brought this here is that in the first situation, there is speed, accuracy, and there is no confusion, there is no fear, and you can drive without any much difference. In the second one, there's a lot of confusion, there's fear, there is no speed, you cannot expect accuracy, or you cannot expect, you cannot reach the destination as you want to do. The same is with a non-reader and a reader. A reader will find himself in the first situation. A non-reader will always find himself in the second situation. A reader, when you give an unknown piece of text to a reader, reader means a person who has the habit of reading daily or regularly. That's what I mean by a reader. So when you give an unknown text, he will immediately read, interpret, and do the task immediately with speed and accuracy. Because he has been reading for quite a long time, his vocabulary will definitely be good. He will be reading very fast. He can interpret things very fast. So he can drive or he can do the work very fast and with accuracy, as we saw in the first situation. But what about the non-reader? He's not exposed to reading habits. It will take a lot of time. He'll come across all difficult words. He'll find all the words to be difficult because he has not built up his vocabulary power. You cannot expect accuracy or speed over here. He has to put a lot of efforts. He has to take a lot of help from others to do the task. Now, why I'm talking about this is all these things is that when you don't give meaningful inputs to your brain, it stops functioning. As it happens in the case of the non-reader. The non-reader doesn't give any meaningful input, or he doesn't read anything, and he is not giving any work to the brain. So it stops. It starts fading out. So, whereas in the case of a reader, he's reading regularly and he's giving meaningful inputs. He's updating himself. He's giving a lot of exercise to his brain. So his brain is active and the brain receives the inputs quickly and processes it, and his brain is able to do the work. Whereas the non-reader is not able to do it. When we don't give meaningful inputs to the brain, we get outdated. Instead of accepting the fact that we are outdated, we blame and we complain, saying that there is generation gap, there is communication gap. There is no such thing as communication gap or generation gap. The fact is that we have become outdated. That is the fact. Instead of accepting the fact, we put the blame on others. We say it is generation gap, communication gap. Let's move on to the next point. My question here is, do you think reading expands and adds charm to a person's mind and heart? The answer is a perfect yes. No one can say it's no. It's a clear yes to this question. We have already discussed earlier. I would like to give you one more example. Let me check the time. Yes, we have time. Let me give one more example and prove what I've said earlier. What happens during formal gatherings? In formal gatherings, we have, like, you might have attended workshops, might have attended conferences, face-to-face workshops, not online workshops like this. What happens? You have tea breaks, lunch breaks, you have tea breaks in the evening also. What happens? You might have observed that during these breaks, one or two persons attract a lot of followers, they have a lot of fans, and you might have seen people surrounding those persons and asking them questions, introducing themselves. Why? What is the reason? And I have observed them closely, and I've asked them many questions to those people also. And I found that such persons, those who are able to attract the fans and followers, they are voracious readers. Voracious readers carry themselves with confidence. They have answers for all the questions because they read a lot, and that's why they are able to attract fans and followers within few seconds, few hours. They are able to attract, and that's why I say reading expands and adds charm to a person's mind and aura. Let's move on to the next slide. So far, we have been discussing about books in general. Now we are going to talk about literary texts. Why should we read literary texts? Do you think literary texts are meant only for the literature students? Don't you think it is meant for other students also, those who belong to other streams? Yes, it is equally meant for others also. But there is a misconception among the students and the people who are in the other streams. They feel that literary texts are not important for them. Just reading their subject books is enough for them. No, it is not so. I have had many arguments with my colleagues from other streams. They say, "What is there? Why should we read novels? Why should we read poems? It has got all fantastical elements, and it takes you away from life. And you people live in a fantasy world, and the literary texts are totally cut off from life." This is a big misconception among the people. This is not so because I have put 2 points over there. Reading literary texts teach you how to live. The next point is they usher in optimism amidst negativities. They give you or feel you optimistic even when you are amidst so many negative days, misfortunes. Now, I'm not going to just give these statements and stop here. We are going to prove it. We are going to do some experiments now. Now it's time for the participants to get in and participate in the activities which we are going to have now. Now, let me explain. It's not a very difficult task. I have chosen few lines from the popular poems. You might have read all these poems, well-known poems, popular poems. You might have read all these poems, I'm sure. I've picked few lines from them, and I want you to take a flashback and tell how you felt when you read these lines for the first time. I repeat the question, read the lines on the screen, which I'm going to show you now. You're going to read and you're going to tell how you felt when you read these lines for the first time, or what is the message you got when you read these lines. Because we need to prove these 2 points which you see on the screen right now. I've put 2 points. It says literary text teach us how to live. The second one is it makes us feel optimistic even when we are amidst negativities. So we need to prove these two points, and we are going to do some activities here. This is the poem To Autumn by Keats, John Keats. You might have read all this poem. I want you to tell how you felt when you read these lines for the first time, or what is the message you have taken from this poem. Can anyone read out Can you just read out from the chat box what is the responses of the participants?
Ma'am, the responses are yet to come. I think the participants are reading the poem now. Once the responses come
Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Very popular.
telling that it transports one to nature.
It transports one to nature. Fine. Anything else?
Yes, ma'am. Kalyan says that abundance in nature and nature's beautiful blessings. People are reminded of nature's beautiful blessings. Imagining a beautiful fruit orchard. It makes you feel fresh, earning for spring.
Yes, it makes you feel fresh.
God is blessing through nature.
God
Identifying
is blessing through nature.
Peaceful nature elevates one's mood as we find we are not alone in the world.
Yes, elevates our mood. Very good. Beautiful responses.
It talks about change in life due to change in seasons. It gives a very soothing and
seasons.
Celebrates nature and day and life. It gives optimism. The harmony in nature is reflected. These are the various responses.
Okay, fine. So very beautiful responses we got, and all these responses tell that literary texts are not, they don't take us away from life. All the responses which you read out, do you think they are taking you away from life? No, definitely not. The message which I got from this poem is that the last lines are important. Where are the songs of spring? Because spring is liked by everyone. Where are they? The poet says. And finally, he gives the answer also. Think not of them, thou hast thy music. Each and every season has its own, positive things. Each season has its own advantages and disadvantages also. So the same thing is with the human beings also. Everyone is different. We need to accept everyone and live in peace. This is the message I got. And before moving on to the next slide, I would like to ask 3 questions. I'm going to repeat these 3 questions because we need to prove the statements which I made in the previous slide. The questions are, do you think such messages are only meant for literature students? The second question is, don't you think these messages are relevant for the students belonging to other streams? The third question is, can you find such life lessons in a science textbook, in maths textbooks? Can you find it in engineering textbooks? Can you find it in medical textbooks? No. Only in literary texts you can find such life messages, life lessons. So let's move on to the next one. It is Ode to the West Wind by Shelley. All of you might have read this. And the last line is very important. It's a very popular line. Eternal lines, I would say. It says, the trumpet of prophecy, O wind. If winter comes, can spring be far behind? I want you to tell how you felt when you read these lines for the first time, or what is the message you take from this. Please type your answers in our chat box.
Yes, ma'am. People are telling hope. It gives hope, optimism. It's for each and every
optimism.
Yes. Repeatedly, optimism and hope are popping up, ma'am. Hope for life, optimistic. It's
Yes.
hope. The chat box
So
is filled with the word hope.
hope. So
Yes,
how
ma'am.
can you say that literary texts are taking away from life? It is giving you hope. It is refreshing you. It is rejuvenating you. It is it is infusing optimism in you. How can you say that it is taking you away from life? Before I move on to the next slide, I want to ask or repeat the same questions. Do you think such life lessons are meant only for literature students? Don't you think it is meant for all other students belonging to other streams? And why are they neglecting these texts? You cannot find these life lessons in medical textbooks, engineering textbooks, accounts textbook. Nowhere you can find. So let's move on to the next slide. Uh, this is The Road Not Taken by Robert Frost, very famous poem. Can you just tell what is the message you have taken from this poem? Can you just record your responses in the chat box?
Decisions of life, choices that we are making in life, decision making,
Decision making,
on its
such
own.
reading.
Yes, uniqueness and decision making is the answers that we are getting.
Yes, when you take a different path, it shows your uniqueness. It helps, reading such poems helps you in decision making. Don't you think these are life lessons? Do you think such life lessons are meant only for literature students? It is meant for everyone. Such things, again, I'm repeating the same thing. Can you find such life lessons in any other textbooks, any other books related to science, technology, medicine, accounts? No, you will find such life lessons only in literary texts. Again, I'm proving what I said in the previous slide. Now let's take this. This is also a very famous poem. Success is counted sweet. Sorry, by Emily Dickinson. What is the message you get? What is the life lesson you learn from this? Participants, please.
Choosing a way with choices that will be successful for them. Success and uniqueness and optimism.
Optimism, facing success and failure with a balanced mind. Then what else?
Triumph and failure, hard work, value of success. It tells about binary.
Binary.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Uniqueness.
So what are they? What are these messages telling? They're teaching you life lessons. Again, I repeat all those three questions once again. Do you think these life lessons are meant only for literature students? Don't you think they are meant for students belonging to other streams? Where can you find such life lessons? In any other textbooks or any other books related to other subjects? No, you cannot find it. You can find only in literary texts. Now, Mending Wall is one of my favorite poems. What is the message you learn from this? One or two responses quickly.
The participants are still responding to the previous one. We'll give them a second so that we'll get the responses.
Okay.
Meanwhile, people are telling literature enhances one's EQ, which is only possible through literature.
Yes.
And the response is maintaining relationship with others, universal brotherhood, responsibility and limitations, interpersonal communication, contradictions in life, world is wide open for everyone, good relationship with neighborhood, maintaining a good relationship, love thy neighbors, thus thyself.
Oh, yes, very good. So all these are life lessons. It is meant for everyone, not only literature students. And why students and faculty members belonging to other streams say that why should we read literary texts? They are so they run away from literary texts. They don't want to read novels. They are totally against novels and poems. I don't understand why they do it. The message which I got from this poem is that mending walls is not the solution. Mending your minds is very important. Here the poet is listening to the neighbor. The neighbor wants the wall to be there, he wants to mend the wall, but the poet doesn't want it. But he agrees to what the neighbor says, he doesn't argue with him. He says, okay, let's have a wall. Both of them are mending the wall. He is ready to accept the neighbor's suggestion, though he's not happy with what he's saying, but he does it for having a good relationship with the neighbors. This concept should be kept in mind when we talk about interstate disputes or borders across the countries. Just redefining the walls or the borders is not enough. Mending your mind is important. This is a lesson I learned from this poem. Where can you find? Can you find in engineering books? Can you find them in medical texts? No, definitely no. Let's move on to the next one. Ode on Aggression Urn. These lines are very beautiful lines, one of my favorite lines. You all might have come across, I'm sure about it. What is that to learn from this? Please type your responses.
Permanence of art is a response, ma'am. Self-made, permanence of art. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yes, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. Beautiful.
Of life.
Pardon?
Art for art's sake.
Art for arts. Okay.
Nature is the life. People are connecting nature and life together, and beauty and art.
Okay, fine.
Most of the responses are with regard to art for art's sake and beauty and nature, ma'am.
Beauty and nature. Okay.
Yes.
Let's move on to the next one. Endymion by John Keats. These lines are one of my favorite lines. It says, a thing of beauty is a joy forever. Its loveliness increases. It will never pass into nothingness, but still will keep above quiet for us, and is sleep full of sweet dreams and health and quiet breathing. So you definitely would have read these lines. What did you feel when you read this for the first time, or what is the message you take from this? Or what is the life lesson you learn from this?
The responses are beauty is the language of God, and people
Language of God. Okay.
think of beauty is a joy forever. Beauty is an inner phenomena. Beauty gives happiness, beauty and adventure that lies in life. Beauty is one that value theories. We should celebrate beauty wherever it is.
Wherever it is, okay.
These are aesthetics. These are the responses.
Aesthetics. So do you think all these life lessons again are meant only for literature students? Definitely no. The message which I got from this poem is that a thing of beauty is giving you joy. It gives you peace of mind, it gives you sleep, it gives you sweet dreams, as he says, it gives you health, it gives you quiet breathing. In other words, it gives you happiness. So what are we supposed to do? We need to beautify ourselves. We need to beautify our surroundings. We need to beautify our relationships. We need to beautify our thoughts. We need to beautify our emotions. In other words, we have to beautify our own lives. Beautify our own lives. When we beautify our own lives, you get joy forever. Where do you find such life lessons? Nowhere. It is found only in literary texts. So when somebody says or somebody argues with you saying that literary texts take you away from life, please quote these examples. Now, why should we read autobiographies and biographies? We need to read autobiographies because they are like virtual labs. They give virtual experiences of life. They are like weather forecasts. They tell you what life is even before you start experiencing what life is. Or before you face life, it gives you or it makes you feel what human life is going to be like. It gives it gives a forecast, a kind of forecast for the youngsters before even they just start facing the hardships of life. One of my students, engineering students, asked, actually I was working in one of the engineering colleges earlier, and one of the mechanical engineering students came and asked me, ma'am, Wings of Fire is prescribed in our syllabus. Are we going to get questions from out of it? I said, no. It is meant for extensive reading, so you will not get questions. So he said, why should I read? I will not read. No, I said, it's a very good book. You should read. He said, why should I read, ma'am? Why do people write autobiographies? Why should they waste their time writing about their sad things, sad experiences? They are also wasting their time, and we are also wasting our time in reading autobiographies. It is like digging the graves. So I don't have any interest in reading such biographies and autobiographies. I was just a beginner at that stage, and I gave him some answer. I don't know whether I really convinced him or not. He just nodded his head and went away. If I happen to meet him today, I would be in a better position to explain things. I don't know whether he went and read Wings of Fire or not. I have no idea. But one thing I can tell you, autobiographies act as virtual labs. They give virtual experiences of life. Now, I'm not just going to stop here by making these two statements. We are just going to do some experiments and prove these statements. Now, I have taken few lines from Wings of Fire. You might have come across these lines. They are very power-packed lines. I want you to read and tell what is that you learn from these lines. What is the message you get from this? Yes, hello. Can someone read the reader's responses?
Yes, ma'am. We haven't got any response. Once it comes in,
Okay. Yes, let them read, let them read. I give you 1 minute. You have to be very fast, little fast.
Life is a constant struggle. That is a response, ma'am, and it tells that the journey is most important.
Journey is important because they're talking about the sides of the mountain.
It is our attitude that makes everything, and pain teaches you
Attitude.
a lesson. The growth in life. One should try to achieve heights with team.
Yes.
Destination is not as important as the journey, and hard work leads to success. Every small experience is important for the success in life.
Beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful life lessons you get from this few lines. There are only hardly 2 or 3 sentences here, but you learn so many life lessons out of it. Actually, autobiography is not the story of a single person. It is the story of the mankind as a whole. Why I tell you this is I strongly believe in the existential philosophy which says human nature is not common. It is the human condition is common. The desires, the emotions, the longings, the earnings, basic emotions and feelings of every individual is same. It is common to all human beings. So when you're reading the autobiography, it is not just the story of a single person. It is the story of the mankind as a whole. So we had so many responses in the chat box. Don't you think these 3 lines have taught you so many life lessons? Where can you find such life lessons? Nowhere else. No other subject books, engineering textbooks, no. Medical textbooks, no. Let's move on to the next one. It's a lengthy passage. It is from, again, Wings of Fire. Very powerful lines, eternal lines. I give you 2 minutes because it's a lengthy passage. I want you to read carefully and find out what is the message you get out of it.
We have started to receive responses, ma'am. People are telling 7 stages of life. Material possessions are not important. Challenges are part and parcel of life. It talks about different
Beautiful,
stages of
beautiful.
life.
Anything else?
As of now, that's it, ma'am. Once it comes in, I'll let you know, ma'am.
Yes. So these responses clearly tell you that you have learned so many life lessons from this small passage. The lesson which I learned is that the last 3 lines are very important. The story will end with me, he says, for I have no belongings in the worldly sense. I have acquired nothing, built nothing, possessed nothing, no family, sons, daughters. The last lines are very powerful lines. It clearly tells that human life is meaningless. Man is born and he dies. So human life is meaningless. But that doesn't mean that we need to sit idle and do nothing till we die. Because he has been a son, I've highlighted in the passage with red. He says, I was a son, I was a lad selling newspapers, I was a student, I was an engineer, then he becomes a scientist, then finally he becomes a leader. Though he knows that life is meaningless, he didn't sit idle doing nothing. He has done so many things to make his life meaningful. This is the life lesson I learned from this, and I think you all agree with it. Where will you find such life lessons? Definitely in literary texts. Let's move on to the next slide. It is my experiments with truth. I've put 2 sentences. I've picked 2 sentences from this autobiography and I've put it here. Can you just read and tell me what is the message you get? What is that you learn from it? 1 or 2 responses.
Yes, ma'am. Spiritual hierarchy of birth alone, growth, and death. What is remembered after our death is our work for the social welfare, humility, being humble and spiritual.
See, these 2 sentences are given so many responses. You've flooded the chat box with so many responses, and you have learned so many life lessons. At this stage, I want to repeat my 3 questions. Do you think such literary works are meant only for literature students? My second question is, don't you think it is equally important for students who belong to other streams? Yes, of course. And my third question is, where do you find such life lessons? You cannot find anywhere else. You can find only in literary texts. And I think with all these examples, I've proved my point, which I explained in the previous slide. I showed you 2 statements. I told you literary text teaches life, or it tells you how to live. The second one is it helps you to live optimistically even when you find yourself amidst negative case. Hope I have justified my point. The main thing we teachers face is that we literatures professors, we go to different departments, we teach students belonging to different streams. We being in the literature field, we know the importance of literary text, but how to motivate the students from other streams to read autobiographies, biographies, and literary texts? It's very difficult. If you get a copy of an autobiography and if you ask the students to read it, do you think they will read? No, definitely no. They will look at the bulky book and they will run away. How to make them read? That is a big challenge for us. What is to be done? I followed a beautiful method and it worked out. I'm just sharing it with you. It's a simple one. You can also try it in your classrooms. What I did is the way I did right now for you. I picked few lines from the autobiographies or biographies. I had to put on the slide, not more than a paragraph. Very few lines I used to pick and put it on the slide. And before beginning my class, I used to ask them to read. And I used to give them only 5 minutes, not more than 5 minutes. And I used to ask them to read and then close it and leave it. I never asked them questions. I never used to ask what is the meaning of this word or what you learned from this paragraph. Nothing. And I did it regularly and it gave good responses. The reason why I didn't question them is that when you question them, they get annoyed, they get irritated. Once they come to know that we are not going to be questioned, we are not going to be tested, they love reading. They started reading. Once they come to know that we are going to be questioned, we are going to be tested, the reading task becomes a strenuous one, a boring one, and they run away from reading. So this method I followed. I did it every day in one of the engineering colleges where I worked. And I got very good responses. And initially I found there were students in the class who were not showing any interest in the beginning, but later when they found there is no questions, no testing, they also started reading along with other students. Same thing I tried with poems. I used to select few short poems and put it on the screen and ask them to read. I used to give only 5 minutes, not more than 5 minutes. If they read for 5 minutes, it's more than enough. Only thing is we have to push them and get into the habit of reading. And I tried the same method with short stories also. So every day I used to pick paragraphs. The first paragraph, the first day, the second day, second paragraph, and they were able to read with interest every day. And once I got very good feedback from the parent, he said, now the students, their students are enjoying the reading part, which you introduce every day for 5 minutes in the class. One of the parents called, and that was really motivating for me. And you can try this also. But one thing we need to keep in our mind is don't ask questions. Once you question them, once you test them, they will not read. The reading task becomes strenuous and the joy or the pleasure of reading goes away. So don't ask, just make them read, that's enough. Now, do you all agree with me that literary texts contribute a lot to personality development? Yes, you all will agree with me. I have seen people going for courses. They pay a big amount and take up courses for personality development. But I feel it can be done. We can do it ourselves by reading literary texts. And literary texts contribute a lot towards personality development. When we read novels, what happens? You have a hero, you have a heroine, you have a villain, and you have a lot of minor characters. The hero has heroic qualities, striking heroic qualities. What does the reader do? At subconscious level, when he's reading about the hero, he tries to imbibe those heroic qualities. And this process happens at subconscious level. The same thing happens with the villain. When the reader is talking or reading about the villain, he comes to know what are the villainous traits, and at subconscious level, the reader tries to avoid those personality traits. Same thing is with the minor characters. Why are they minor? Why are they not like the hero? Something is lacking in them, and something very striking quality the hero has that is distinguishing these two people, these two categories. So at subconscious level, the reader tries to imbibe the qualities of the hero and tries to avoid the villainous traits and the characteristics that the minor characters have. This is one part. There are thousands of poems also, which help a lot in personality development. And I'm trying to collect such poems and compile them together, and I'm trying to publish a book about it. And I found one such poem which talks. I've taken only one poem to demonstrate that literary texts contribute a lot towards personality development. This is one of the poems. I just want you to take few minutes to read this and tell me what are the positive personality traits this poem teaches you. I repeat my question. This poem is titled as She Walks in Beauty. It is written by Lord Byron. Here, the poet is talking about the beauty of his cousin's wife. When he saw his cousin's wife, he was totally amazed. he was totally impressed by her personality, and he has written this poem. In this poem, what are the positive personalities traits you find, or what are the strong personality traits you need to imbibe? What is this poem teaching you about personality development? This is my question, and please type in your answers.
Ma'am, we have got one response. They're telling a woman is beautiful. By beautiful, they mean the inner beauty and confidence.
Yes,
Self-love, beauty can also be a strength. Self-confidence, self-confidence and self-love is the frequent answers that we are getting, ma'am.
yes, yes. So inner beauty, they are talking about inner beauty. So personality development is not just about improving your external appearance. It is improving your inner makeup also. And this poem tells you very clearly about it. In the beginning, he talks about the woman's external beauty. The woman, this particular woman is very beautiful. Her hair, her features, eyes, cheeks, everything. He talks about, and he says she's very beautiful. Then towards the last 5 lines, he says she's so soft, so calm, so yet eloquent. She says she's soft, so calm, yet eloquent. She's calm, she doesn't speak much, but her personality speaks. That's what he's trying to say here. The next line, the smiles that win, she has a smiling face. The next line, but tell of days in goodness spent. The last 2 lines are very important. A mind at peace. Just external beauty is not enough. You should have a sound mind, he says. And she had it. A mind at peace with all below. And he says, just having a sound mind is not enough. She has a heart with love, whose love is innocent. She has a beautiful heart, a loving heart, and her love is very innocent. So the message here is external beauty counts, but that is not enough. You should have a sound mind and a beautiful heart, a loving heart whose love is innocent. There are many such poems which help you to develop your personality. Reading such poems will definitely develop your personality, but the changes, you cannot see it immediately. It happens at subconscious level. The reader cannot measure it or see the changes instantly. It happens at subconscious level. Gradually it happens. So you cannot say, I read this poem, nothing has happened to me. It happens very gradually, and it happens at subconscious life slowly. So we are moving on to the second section. It is about misconceptions about reading. Quickly, I'll go. We have 15 minutes more. The first one is, it says, there's a popular misconception that says reading speed is unmodifiable. No, it is modifiable. You can change your speed of reading as it is convenient for you. People say, I cannot read fast. I can read only slowly. They regret for their speed. It has nothing to do with your reading habits. So don't bother about your speed. The second and third misconceptions are related to each other. The second one says fast reading minimizes comprehension. The third one, slow reading brings better understanding. Fast reading is not going to to minimize your understanding capacity, and slow reading in no way it betters your understanding. Actually, fast reading is better because when you read fast, here once again I want to tell you that I'm not talking about academic reading or reading skills. I'm talking about reading habits. So when you want to inculcate reading habits, you just don't have to bother about your speed. Actually, reading fast is better because when you read fast, there are less chances of getting distracted. Slow reading, when you read slowly, there are more chances of getting distracted. So don't think that slow reading is going to bring in a lot of understanding. No. The fourth one on the screen is, it says you should focus on each and every printed word to understand what is being read. When you're reading, to inculcate reading habits, if you're a beginner, there's no need to concentrate or focus on each and every word. That's not required. You just have to read quickly. The fifth one is fifth most common belief or like wrong belief is that read aloud to understand better. Reading loudly is preferred. No, when you read loudly, it slows down your understanding capacity. I'll explain why. When you're reading loudly, the eyes take the inputs and send it to your brain. At the same time, when you're reading loudly, the ears also take the same inputs and send it to the brain. There are two different inputs going to the brain through two different sources, eyes and ears. So the brain faces a lot of problem in taking or receiving the inputs and interpreting it. So loud reading is not going to help you if you really want to inculcate reading habits. The third most misconception is that you have to remember all that you read. 100% remember 100% of all that you have read is another misconception. It's not necessary that you have to remember everything you've read. It's not academic reading. Even if you forget few things, it doesn't matter. The seventh one, go back for missed words and reread them before moving further. This is another misconception. If you have not understood something, we tend to go back and reread it. It is not required if you want to inculcate reading habits. If you're a beginner, don't go back and reread it. Just keep moving and finish the reading task. That's enough. Another popular misconception is that reading subject-related books is real reading. Reading books that is not related to your subject, it has no use. That's the belief of most of the people. No, not so. You can read, a science student can read a literary text, a literature student can read a science text. You just have to read what you like, what you love to read. That's enough. It's not that you need to stick on to a particular set of books. So these are few misconceptions about reading. Now we are moving on to the third section, how to make the non-readers demanding readers. These first four methods are actually my school teacher implemented in the classroom, and it had a very good effect. The first one is that you can ask or you can play a news clipping in the classroom, and after playing the news video clip, you can ask the students to take out the newspapers and read the headlines. Reading headlines is easy. Quickly they can finish and keep it. So that is how you need to begin to make them good readers in the beginning. The second step, once you have implemented the first one, you can reverse the same method. In this, here you can ask the students to read the headlines quickly from the newspapers and make them listen to the TV news later on. So it is just the reverse of what we did in the first step. So when you feel the students are comfortable and they have started reading, you can move on to the third step, which is given here. The third step says, ask the students to read the headlines from the newspapers and ask them to read the first paragraph. The first paragraphs in the news items are often very crispy and short. Let them read it. Let them start reading it. Then when you feel that the students are comfortable with this, you can move on to the fourth step. The fourth step is ask them to read the headlines from the newspaper, ask them to read the first paragraph, and ask them to read the last paragraph of the news item also. Because the last item in the last paragraph in the news item carries all the important points, and it has to conclude. It acts as a conclusion to the whole news item. So that they will find it interesting, and ask them to do. You can proceed to the fourth step. When you find that the first three, when the students are comfortable with the first 3 steps. So this is how we can begin or inculcate reading habits amongst the students. Reverse reading, you can try it by yourself also. Some students find it difficult to read the first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph. They don't want to read in a chronological way. Ask them to do it in the reverse direction. Let them read the last paragraph, second last, and go on. Students find it very interesting and they don't feel it's a boring task. You can try this out, and I do it most of the time. I do it, and I don't feel it is a tedious one when we read in the reverse direction. Another beautiful thing you can do in the class to inculcate reading habits is you can start with audiobooks. Audiobooks, you can play it in the language lab, communication lab, and once the students find that the books are interesting, they will slowly shift to the printed ones. And it's to inculcate, to make them begin to read, you can play the audiobooks in the labs. Then short stories. You can ask them to begin with short stories. It is not only meant for the students, it is meant for us also. Because we have also stopped reading. Most of us, or I don't know, some of you might be reading regularly. But if you want to begin or inculcate reading habits, you can start with short stories, or you can ask the students to start with short stories, poems, shorts, jokes, and that's how they can start or begin to read. 8.1, you can see it, or 8 point, which you see it on the sliders, read as fast as you can. When you're reading, if you're a beginner, read as fast as possible. When you read fast, there are less chances of getting distracted. So read as fast as possible. The 9th one, which you see on the screen, is avoid self-talk while reading. Suppose you have fixed 10 minutes, you have decided to read for 10 minutes every day. Then once you start, don't stop till you finish reading for 10 minutes. Don't wait for any kind of reflection or to think in between. Finish the reading task and then go back for self-talk or reflection. Because when you stop in between for self-talk or reflection, it hinders your reading habits. So at the initial stage, it's better to avoid. Then avoid reading aloud. I told you in the beginning also that reading aloud it has to be avoided, because when you read aloud, you're doing two things. You're straining your eyes to read it and you're straining your throat to read. So when you do this simultaneously, you get exhausted. You cannot read for a long period. So it's better to avoid this. Avoid reading aloud. The 11th point which you see on the screen is start reading just for 10 minutes. Fix that. You decide that you're going to read for 10 minutes daily. And you don't have to make a rigid timetable. When you make rigid timetables, fix the timings, it becomes strenuous. The pleasure of reading is gone. So don't prepare rigid timetables. If you're comfortable reading in the morning, read. Tomorrow, if you feel comfortable reading in the evening, read. Don't fix or prepare rigid timetables at the initial stage. And never feel guilty. Suppose you have decided to read for 10 minutes daily and 1 or 2 days you miss it. Don't feel guilty. Nothing, there's no problem. You can restart again. The 14th point on the slide which you see is try to read in groups. I tried it when we were in school. When we were in college. We were 5 friends and we used to buy the same novel. Of course, we had separate copies. We used to start reading the novel at the same time. And we used to discuss as and when we read the novel. And that was when you read in groups, it keeps you going. When you hear that your friend has read 20 pages, you feel motivated to read. You want to follow your group members, your teammates, and you don't get distracted when you read in groups. And when you're reading in groups, don't compare. If your friend has read 30 pages and you have read 10 pages, no issues. Let her proceed or let him proceed with his or her own pace. You follow your own pace. The next point is don't get annoyed when you come across difficult words. Suppose you have fixed the time and you have decided to read for 10 minutes every day. If you come across, when you're reading, if you're coming across difficult words, don't stop. Don't stop to head for the dictionary. You complete the reading task and don't stop in between. You can have a pencil and underline the words. And when you finish the task, pick out only 2 or 3 words and refer the dictionary and try to remember the meanings or their usage. And one more thing is, if you tend to forget, and if you're next day, if you try to recollect and if you're not able to remember, don't worry. The same words will be repeated when you read another passage, another text. Don't strain yourself in the beginning stages. The next point which you see on the screen is don't stop to reread if you come across difficult concepts. When you're reading, if you come across difficult concepts, don't stop. Complete the task of reading. If you stop in between, it will demotivate you. It will create a kind of exhaustion, distraction, and you will never be able to complete your reading task. When you're a beginner, just when you're reading, look out for the gist. Don't look out the meaning. Look out for meaning for each and every word. Just if you're able, when you read, if you're able to get the gist of the passage, it's more than enough in the beginning stages. And if you're reading a lengthy text, take meaningful breaks. Meaningful, I want you to focus on the word meaningful. I say meaningful breaks because when you come back after taking a break, you should feel fresh. You should refresh yourself and come. You should not exhaust yourself by doing some other difficult tasks and come back exhausted. And if you're exhausted, you cannot continue to read. So it should be a meaningful break. So take meaningful breaks if you're reading a lengthy text. Then next is read out bedtime storybooks. It's totally missing. When we were small children, our grandfather used to read storybooks for us. That is totally missing in this particular generation. We as parents can do this for our children if they are very small. We should start this habit of reading storybooks at the early stage itself. Once the children know that the books are interesting, are good for us, they will automatically start reading by themselves. The next point which you see on the screen is read when wide awake. Don't read when you're tired. Don't read when you're totally exhausted. Some people read before going to bed, even when they're totally exhausted. No. And some people read to force themselves to sleep. When they don't get sleep, they try to read, and when their eyes get strained, they feel sleepy or they fall asleep. So that is not good if you really want to inculcate reading habits. Read when you're wide awake or when you're fresh, when you're full of energy. Choose the right time and start reading. The last and the most important one is apply Newton's first law. What do you mean by Newton's first law? Newton's first law says an object tries to remain at rest or in motion unless you put or apply an external force. Unless you apply an external force, the object will not move or it will continue to be in motion as it was earlier. What I mean to say here is you need to put effort. No one else can help you to become demanding readers. The effort should come from your side. You have to motivate yourself and make efforts to inculcate reading habits. So here I end the last section, but I would like to conclude my presentation with beautiful quotes about books. Mary Scannell has said something beautiful about reading. It says, it goes like this: reading is a discount ticket everywhere. So if you want a discount ticket, keep reading. Another beautiful quote you can see at the bottom of the slide. It says, beware of the person of one book. A person who has read only one book is very dangerous. So in other words, what is he saying? The message is read as many books as possible. Another quote which you see on the screen is said, goes like this. Sorry, I'm not. The reading of all good books is like conversation with the finest of the past centuries. The last quote which you see on the book, on the slide here is, if we encounter a man of rare intellect, we should ask him what books he reads. So next time, if you find a pleasing personality, a striking personality, ask for what kind of books he or she is reading. So here with these beautiful quotes, I end my presentation, and I wish you all happy reading. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful session. I'll now post select questions from the audience, ma'am. We'll move on to the Q&A session.
This one small request is that let this be a kind of discussion instead of posing all the questions on me. Even if the participants are ready with beautiful answers, better answers, they can also get in and answer it. So let us make it more.
So the first question is from Dr. Michelle Phillip. She would like to know how to share how reading fiction is very different from reading technical manuals.
Technical manuals. Reading fiction, actually, as I said, it is good to, if you want to inculcate reading habits, you can start with fiction. It is easy. It gives you pleasure. Technical books, it tells you only about the subject knowledge. If you have any other better answers from the participants, you can share it. Let the participants get in and answer.
Yes, ma'am. We have to wait for the responses.
That's because I'm a resource person here doesn't mean that I know everything. The participants might be having better answers. Let them join the question and answer session also.
But we are getting a lot of responses telling that your session is very nice and very engaging, ma'am. Those are the responses that we are getting, that it's a very healthy and wonderful session.
Thank you. Thank you.
I guess we'll move to the next question, ma'am.
Sure.
So most of our participants on Zoom and also on YouTube are asking how to bridge the gap between ebooks and hard copies that exists among digital natives now.
E-books. See, we cannot stop the youngsters using electronic gadgets. If they are comfortable with e-books, we should allow them. That's what I feel, because we cannot blame them or we cannot stop them. Even if you stop them, it is impossible. Let them. That's what I feel.
Yes, ma'am. Yeshuraj has an interesting question. He's asking how to make non-literature majors fall in love with literature.
That's what I said. I told you how to make them understand that literary texts are interesting, are useful for them. I talked about autobiographies. I picked so many poems and told them. And if you want the students of other streams to read literary texts, I told you the method also. Pick out a few lines from the biographies, autobiographies, or poems, and put it on the slide. Let them read. Don't ask questions. When you ask questions, they will run away. They won't read. And the reading task becomes strenuous and the joy of reading is gone. So let them fall in love. Give them 5 minutes, not more than 5 minutes. If you ask them to read for more than 5 minutes, they will not read. Begin the session with like this. Give them 5 minutes, put a few things on the slide, interesting lines on the slide, make them read, let them interpret on their own, don't ask questions, and soon you will find that they will fall in love with literary texts.
Yes, ma'am. The last question is from Suganya Balakrishnan. She is asking you to share your thoughts on bibliotherapy, which is therapeutic reading. So what are your thoughts on bibliotherapy?
To be frank, I'm not familiar with this. If anyone from the participants is ready with the answer or familiar with this, most welcome. And I would also like to know what it is.
Sure, ma'am. The responses are coming up, but I think people are answering the previous questions.
Wait, can you just repeat the question? Can you just repeat the question? I'll make a note.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. They want you to share your thoughts on bibliotherapy, which is bibliotherapy. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll just make a note and try to find out what it is. It's a new term. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. That was very nice of you. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Has anyone answered from the participants? If they know it, let them.
People are still responding to your session, telling that it's a very awesome session. It was really engaging.
Thank you. Thank you.
All those responses we are getting, and there is one response: reading as a therapy or pleasure is basically what bibliotherapy is. People are just defining what bibliotherapy is throughout the chat box.
Okay, thank you. I'll also refer and noted it down. I'll get back.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. That was a wonderful session, ma'am. Thank you for engaging us, ma'am. And I would like to thank you, ma'am, on behalf of the organizing committee. And I truly appreciate the dedicated efforts of academicians like you who go an extra mile through kindness and also generosity to enrich the teaching fraternity, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you once again. I wish you all happy reading once again. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So now participants, the link to post your attendance cum feedback has been shared in the chat box. Your participation will be validated only if you fill this form, and this link will be active only for the next 20 minutes. Kindly fill in before the time lapses. Thank you.